Welcome into Reds Reality Podcast. I'm your host, Josh Razauskas, here to bring you reality as I see it on all things your Cincinnati Reds. I've been recovering from a really nasty cold, and I just quite frankly have not been able to record since opening day. So rather than go over 5 games with you guys, which would be the final 2 games against the Giants and this entire series against the Texas Rangers. As it says on today's show graphic that you see on your screen, I'm going to do more of a roundup. And I'm going to talk about the positives, the negatives, and the concerns and all of that, and try to round it up into a nice 20 to 30 minutes or maybe less type of scenario, because one, that makes it easier for you to digest. Two, it makes it easier for me to upload to YouTube since the channel is not old enough to go live yet. And three, well, it makes for a less amount of notes that you have to read, which right now is good for me as well, because as you can see, I have not yet got the low profile arm that I talked about getting, so that my face isn't so much skewed by the arm. I am $70 currently away from being able to purchase that arm, so hopefully that will happen with my next paycheck. So, between not wanting to read too many notes, as well as the head movement just is a natural thing that comes with cerebral palsy, I'm just trying to make this as easy as possible on me and as enjoyable as possible for you to watch and listen to. So, let's start with one of 3 categories that I've broken this down into. Category number 1 is the pitching. The pitching has been absolutely phenomenal. All 5 guys have gone. Hunter Green now has gone twice. And all 5 guys, Carson Spires included, have been absolutely phenomenal. They've been on point. They've been locating their pitches. They seem to have been able to overcome not having the greatest stuff when they didn't have the greatest stuff. Hunter Green twice now, believe it or not, despite how good his first 2 starts have been, has said that he hasn't 100% had command of his breaking pitches. So think about that for a second. If this is Hunter Green at less than 100%, we're in for one heck of a ride going forward, aren't we? Because he has just been fantastic and truly been the ace. Nick Lodolo looked really good. In his first start back, he looks healthy. The splinter issue looks to be gone. Ironically, the Rangers pitcher from today got victimized by the same thing, was taken out from a precaution on a splinter issue, was lighter. So I found that really ironic. But yeah, Lodolo looks healthy from the splinter situation, and he looks healthy from a leg standpoint. Like, that's what we talked about in the off season, and that's what I talked about going into my outlook on the season. Was he looks like he can run again. He looks like he was able to do a full season workout, because that's the thing you got to remember about, full off-season workout, because that's the thing you got to remember about Nick Lodolo, is that we have not seen Nick Lodolo at 100% pretty much from the beginning, at least the last 2 years. Anyway, it's been a long time between arm issues and just overall body shape issues. When you can't run and you're a professional baseball player, that's a problem. And that's what Nick Lodolo had. So I thought he was absolutely fantastic in his first start. Nick Martinez does what Nick Martinez does. I mean, The guy isn't going to blow you away. He isn't going to be the guy who you look at and go, me, oh man, look at the stuff this guy has. But what he does do is he knows how to pitch. He's a Tom Browning type of guy. For those of you who've been Reds fans long enough to remember Mr. Perfect, he's that kind of guy. He's a guy that is going to get by on purely knowing how to pitch. He's going to outthink his opponent, and that's what he did a good job of in his first start. And I'm really not going to mind him in the starting role at all if he can keep that up. And I think the Reds really made the right decision to bring him back, because when you do have Andrew Abbott and you do have Rhett Lauder healthy, and both those guys are in your rotation, then Martinez hopefully can slide right back into that multiple inning role in the Reds bullpen and be just as valuable. So I'm really glad Nick Martinez is back. Brady Singer, my goodness gracious, Brady Singer pitched on the game against the Rangers when the offense exploded. And again, we'll get into the offense next. But he pitched in that game against the Rangers, and he's the first guy since Tom Seaver, the Hall of Famer, to make his first start with the Reds, his Reds debut, and go 7 shutout innings. That is how impressive Brady Singer was in his start 2 days ago. So, my goodness, if this is what we're going to get, best trades the Reds ever made. I have said publicly a number of times that I'm a huge Jonathan India fan. I still am. I love Jonathan India the person. I loved him for his passion for being here as a Red. I loved him for his willingness to just do whatever he could do out there on the field, but his weakness was defense, and he was in a situation where he was an asset the Reds could utilize leverage-wise to get an asset they needed, and they did that with the Kansas City Royals this year, and Brady Singer looks like he's going to be a phenomenal addition to this rotation. And quite frankly, if I'm correct, I think that he might be eligible to be re-signed in the offseason. If not this offseason, it's next offseason. MLB The Show is not always accurate when it comes to contracts, unless someone has just signed a brand new contract, which is where I'm remembering that it might be this year that you would re-sign Brady Singer. But if and when his contract comes up, whether that's this year or next year, Brady has done in one start already a thing where, okay, are you going to put Rhett Lauder, Chase Petty, and Chase Burns in this rotation and lose Andrew Abbott? Or are you going to put Rhett Lauder, Chase Petty, and Chase Burns in this rotation and keep Brady Singer and lose Nick Martinez? Like, there's a lot of things to consider. Are you going to trade one of those pieces, which would likely be Petty among the three, because in my opinion he is the one with the least amount of potential, although he looked phenomenal in spring training. But out of the two Chases, it's Chase Petty that is the weakest for sure. And we all know what Rhett Lauder can do and what he's going to continue to be able to do when he's healthy. So starting pitching for this team right now is just through the roof. And the Reds have something right now which they have not had. And honestly, I can't even remember when. I think the last time they had this kind of depth might have been 2003-04, like right around the era when they traded for Matt Latos, when they expected Matt Latos to be good because he was really good in San Diego for the Padres. I think that was the last time that the Reds had this kind of pitching depth where not only is 1 through 5 really strong, but when you have a situation like you do right now where Andrew Abbott suffered a little bit of a setback and needed longer to be ready to go for the major league season. And Rhett Lauder, same thing, is not ready to come up right away to begin the major league season. You've got a guy like Carson Spires who now steps in and does really well. Through 6 innings, really only made one bad pitch. The home run that was hit off Carson Spires yesterday was a really good pitch. It was down and in, and that's usually a location that you're going to have success against a right-handed hitter. And I forget who it was because, again, I don't have all of the notes in front of me, but the Rangers hitter that hit that ball, he just put a damn good swing on the ball. I mean, that's all there is to it. He put a freaking good swing on that baseball and hit it out. And to me, that was really the only mistake that Carson Spires made. And then today, as I mentioned, Hunter Green comes back for start number 2, and he threw his slider, if I have these numbers correct, he threw his slider 75% of the time. And he still said that he didn't feel like his slider and splitter were all the way there. So if he's throwing his slider 75% of the time and he doesn't feel like it's all the way there, if he can mix in the splitter even more to complement the slider to go with that dominating fastball, my goodness, are we in for something special. We're talking about Cy Young type of special, if he keeps that up. Like, we're not talking about, oh, Hunter Green's just going to skate by. We're talking about Hunter Green's becoming a pitcher. And that's something I was talking about with the guys over on the Locked On Reds Discord during today's game, was I was talking about, this is Hunter Green, the pitcher. He's not Hunter Green, the thrower. He's not the guy who knows he throws 100 miles an hour, so he's just going to try to get away with it all the time out there. No, he is actually dialing back when he needs to on the fastball, and he's mixing in breaking pitches, even when he feels like breaking pitches aren't really strong for him. And the splitter last year, the addition of that pitch gave him a third pitch because the slurve has just been okay. Hasn't been consistent at all, but learning that splitter and becoming actually really effective with it, the more and more he throws it, makes him such a dangerous pitcher. Such a dangerous pitcher. And I'm so excited about what he's going to do this year. He also reached 500 strikeouts today and became the 3rd youngest Red, I believe it is, to do it. And he trails only Hunter Green and Rob Dibble for how fast he got to 500 strikeouts. And remember that, I said Hunter Green, my fault. Aroldis Chapman and Rob Dibble, Hunter Green is the one that trails only them. And when you think about Chapman and Rob Dibble, Chapman and Dibble were relief pitchers. And that's where most of your dominant strikeout performances are going to come from. With the way the game works, just in general, even back in the 90s when Dibble pitched, it's just the nature of the beast because relievers can throw 100% almost every time out because they don't have to worry about trying to eat up innings and giving their team a lengthy outing, which is why so many of us are excited, on paper at least, about Graham Ashcraft. Again, we're about to get into the pitching, but that's one of the reasons, we're about to get into the hitting. But before we close out the pitching, we got to talk about the bullpen, so we'll get to him here in a minute. But I think that on paper, that's why so many of us are excited about Graham Ashcraft being in the bullpen, because Ashcraft can just let it eat. And if he can just let it eat, he can be far more effective. Because he really only has to throw 2 pitches. He doesn't necessarily have to master a third. But just to finish the point on Hunter Green that I was making, Hunter Green is getting these strikeout numbers as a starting pitcher, which is something that you don't see unless you're a Jacob deGrom in his heyday, unless you're a Garrett Crochet right now, or probably the most comparable guy numbers wise and age wise right now is, of course, the fellow cover athlete of our own Ellie De La Cruz on MLB The Show 25, Paul Skeens of the Pittsburgh Pirates. That's the kind of numbers we're talking about when you're talking about the ability to do this as a starting pitcher. So, yeah, Hunter's just heck of exciting. Before I close out the pitching, I did mention that I was going to touch on the bullpen. The bullpen has been pretty darn good. I think it's a situation where guys' roles are still being defined with the team, right? So Terry, I don't think is yet nailed down, like who's going to be where with Alexis Diaz out. But from what I've seen, everybody has done really well. Even Ian Jabot, who fell apart on opening day, as we talked about, has come back, and the 2 times that he's been used since has been looking pretty strong. So it's just a matter of he wasn't being used in the right spot or in the right situation in that opening day game. From what I can tell so far, Rogers just needs to come around a little bit and be a little more consistent where we all think he can be. And then after that, you're back into the bullpen. It's pretty much defined because you've got Rogers, you've got Barlow, you've got Santion. Sorry, my brain was farting there for a second. And you've got Emilio Pagan. Emilio Pagan has gotten a lot of the late inning opportunities, and he's got the one Reds save on the year when the Reds had a save opportunity that a Reds relief pitcher was actually able to cash in on. Sorry, I'm a little bit ramped up right now because I have so much to catch up on, and I'm actually really, truly excited still about this team, despite what the record said, and I'll explain why as we move on. But Emilio Pagan, as I was saying, is the one Reds reliever who actually cashed in on his save opportunity. So I really, really like him in the back into the bullpen. So I think he's going to close games majority than not. Even though Terry Francona has said, and I actually like this philosophy as well, that he doesn't really believe in closers per se. He just believes in using the best pitcher when you need him, and then just let the rest of the chips fall where they may. But if your strongest pitcher is going to be your final 3 outs in the ninth, if that's what's really needed the most during a game, I think Emilio Pagan will have that role until Alexis Diaz comes back. And I think that you need to seriously think about, do you just keep him in that role? And as I try and straighten out my head here, guys, like I said, it has to do with, unfortunately, where my mic arm is right now, trying to talk well into the microphone, as well as it's just a drawback with cerebral palsy. Like, it's very hard to keep my head in one position when I talk for this long, but I'm really, really trying. So I hope you can bear with me and just enjoy this ride with me. But yeah, Emilio Pagan, I think you have to consider him staying in the ninth inning role because he's been that effective. Graham Ashcraft, we talked about Graham. He's come in for 1 game, I believe, or maybe it's 2 now. But I think he's been really good for the opportunities he's been given. He hasn't been tremendous, and I find it a little bit strange that we haven't seen him more than what we have. But maybe because it's a new role, or maybe Tito is just seeing something in Graham that we don't know about, and that's why he's not overusing him. Right now, I'm not entirely sure, to be honest, but I hope we do see more of him going forward. I really, really do. And yeah, there's just almost nothing bad you can say about the pitching. The reason that we're 2-4 right now is because of the offense. It's not because of the pitching. So let's transfer over into that offense, because I think what's happening here early on, and there is a third element to this, which is Tito, which I was not expecting to say, and I don't think any of us were expecting any podcast host or any Reds fan in general to be saying, is Tito a negative factor on this team? At least not this early on in his Reds career. But that is a reality right here on the Reds Reality Podcast to some extent. So we'll talk about it, break it down, and talk about what the good and the bad has been with Tito and our third and final segment here. But overall, what's happening with this offense is that they're not consistent in terms of when they take great swings, they can score 14 runs like they did against the Rangers. But when they aren't consistent, it's a situation where they're pressing and trying to do too much. Ellie De La Cruz today swung at a pitch that was clearly ball four because he was trying to cash in on Matt McLain being over at first base. When those are the kind of things you're doing and you're not waiting for your pitch, that's dangerous. But there's also been a number of times this year where the Reds really just have almost been too patient, particularly Ellie De La Cruz. Again, Ellie's trying to find that balance where he doesn't overly swing and doesn't swing at pitches he shouldn't be swinging at. And there's been a number of times early on where I was like, man, Ellie should have been all over that pitch. So that's the number one takeaway that I take from this offense. And I think that's why we've lost close games. And I think that's why we have 4 losses versus the 2 wins, is they just haven't found that balance. They haven't found that consistency of hitting the right pitches and cashing in on the right pitches and having the pitches fall. Because there's also been a number of occasions in these first 6 games, particularly the last 5 that I haven't talked about until right now, that we've had a situation where the ball is just not finding a hole. It's just not finding a hole, and the result of that is that it's being sucked right into the glove for the out. So I think that's the biggest thing, is that the offense is just either pressing or being too patient, and that's why our record is where we're at, and we need to turn that around. From a health standpoint, we have a big problem with Spencer Steer. I get why, and we talked about why even when I recapped opening day, why Spencer Steer was on this opening day roster and why he was able to talk himself into being on the roster, but he's not 100% by any stretch of the imagination. Spencer's got to be allowed to heal. He just has to be allowed to heal, and they've got to have somebody else on the roster. Whether that's you bring up Reese Hines, you give Will Benson another shot. I don't know what it is, but a responsible team. Tim Daniels said it on the Locked On Reds postcast today, and I'm going to steal it because it is the most potent way and most truthful way to put this line word for word, and that is that a responsible team does not take Spencer Steer to Milwaukee for this road trip. You can't do it. You can't do it. His OPS has been in the negatives, I think, if not like very, very low decimal points. I mean, it's so far below league average that it's almost laughable. If this was anybody else, he'd be sent to the minor leagues like right now as of 2 hours ago. So because this is an injury situation that you're dealing with Spencer Steer, it's just the easiest thing in the world to say no. Enough. we're taking you off this roster and letting you heal. I know the plan was to wait for Austin Hayes to come back, but Austin Hayes isn't due back until the start of the next road trip. Not this one, but the next one. So, if that's the case, it's just too long of a wait. You got to make a move now. Do you also make a move for Blake Dunn and Jacob Hurtubise? I don't know. I really don't know because it might be too early to judge both those guys, but their track record isn't there, and I don't know. You got to find more strength than weakness so that you can find that balance and you can find that consistency and you can be better, because this team is better than this. It's better than a 2-4 record in the first 6 games. Absolutely. 10,000, a million, whatever percentage points you want to put on it. The Reds are better than a 2-4 team. They just are. And they're just being victimized right now, and changes need to happen. Now, as we close out, I can't talk about being victimized without talking about the fact that the Reds right now are just being victimized a little bit by their manager. Tito is still a Hall of Famer. He's still the greatest manager this team has had, and I don't know how long. I still 100% believe that at the end of the day, Tito is going to result in more wins than losses, than especially David Bell did before him, and Brian Price did before David Bell, and maybe overall since Dusty Baker did in a Reds uniform. But Tito is a mix of old school and new school. And right now, some of his decisions are a little bit scratch my head worthy. Like the decision in game 1 we talked about with Ian Jabot. That wasn't the right call. I get that you want consistency. I get you want a guy that throws strikes, but Ian Jabot to save a game is not the right call when you had Rogers right there, when you had Pagan right there, and you could flip those two around when you had Santillan right there. And then bunting TJ Friedl yesterday. Now, ironically enough, I called for TJ to bunt, called for a bunt earlier in the game when Jamer Candelario did it yesterday. I thought that was the right call, and I talked about how middle ball is something, and fundamentals in general are something that you just don't see enough of anymore in baseball, and the teams have gotten away from being able to just execute and do the smart thing and move the runner over when the runner needs to be moved over. But in the situation that TJ Friedl was in the other day, 2 days ago, you don't bunt him right there. You have to let him swing away and let the chips fall where they may. I don't understand that decision. And I think that Tito needs to look at the lineup. I think, he said, and well power to him, because he should feel this way. He said that he's not going to be watching or listening to this podcast or any other, or paying attention to social media, because he's got the rings. He's the manager. We're not managers. We're just fans on our couches or in our wheelchairs, in my case. But reality is reality. The name of this show notwithstanding. And the reality is that you just have to see what's in front of you right now, Tito. And what's in front of you right now is that there's something in this lineup that just isn't working. And the spark of consistency just isn't there. And you need to move some pieces around. And you need to find something that works better. Your top 3 is great. You don't have to mess with that. As long as TJ's in there, you don't have to mess with Friedl, McLean, De La Cruz. You absolutely don't have to mess with that. I know some people would like Ellie to bat second to get more at-bats, and I get that. But I think where he's at in third is actually really beautiful right now, because Matt McLean is going to get a lot of pitches in front of him and give him a lot of opportunities to get some RBIs, which I think is what Ellie wants. Ellie wants to be a run producer at the plate, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. So you don't have to mess with your top three. But when you're hitting Gavin Lux fourth because you don't have Austin Hayes, that's a problem. When you don't have Tyler Stevenson in this lineup in the middle, that's a problem. So you've got to find the rest of the guys underneath your main top three, where to put them to be the most successful. And it's those little things that win or lose baseball games. Now, of course, we are talking here on April the 2nd, 2025. It is only 6 games. It is not time to panic yet. A 2-4 record right now does not mean you're going to miss the playoffs. Being under 500 right now does not mean you're going to miss the playoffs. But when we get to July and August and September, it will mean that you're going to miss the playoffs if you don't have more wins than losses, if that consistency is not there. So I implore Terry Francona to realize that he has coaches around him right now who have been around this team a little bit longer than him, so they may know guys' strengths better than him in terms of what they can and can't do. I implore him to look at the film from all 6 of these games and just figure out the right button to push. And more importantly, or rather, just as importantly, I meant to say, I implore the players themselves, the Reds themselves, to look at what they're doing at the plate, study their own film and go, okay, I should be more aggressive here, or I should be less aggressive here. If you're being too aggressive, don't be too aggressive. If you're not being aggressive enough, be more aggressive. Find that balance, find that consistency, because that is what we need, and that is how we win ball games. Well, Reds country, how does that old saying go again? Something like, the best laid plans of mice and men? Yeah, the Brewers were not supposed to be a part of this video. They were supposed to be individual games, and I was supposed to finally be caught up with y'all, and then I get the whole video for the Rangers and the Giants filmed and get ready to edit it, and what happens? My mouse breaks. Completely broke just from falling on the floor one time. And maybe it was one time too many, or maybe it dropped on the sensor. No idea, but seeing as how I'm in the wheelchair, I took advice from my cousin, and I got a wired one this time that will have the wire catch it if somehow or another I push it over too far. So that won't be an issue that happens again. So let's talk about these Brewers games, shall we? And unfortunately, we still haven't won a game at now 7 games at the time of this recording. We had a 1-0 loss again on Thursday, and then at the time of recording, just noticed I clipped there. Didn't mean to do that when I said Thursday. Said that too loud. But anyway, your ears aside with that accident, we had a 1-0 game again on Thursday, and then last night on Friday, finally scored a couple of runs, and we had a really good rally and really positive energy toward the end of that game, but was another 1-run loss as we fell 3-4. So what are the positive takeaways? Well, again, the pitching. Nick Lodolo, I think that was the best game he's ever pitched 2 days ago against the Milwaukee Brewers up against Nestor Cortez. He has never looked better, in my opinion. He was very pinpoint, really only made the one mistake, and then really when you look at it, the ball that went out, like we said about some other balls in this roundup that we're doing, it really wasn't a mistake, really. It was more of the guy just hit a really good pitch in a really good location. That's what happened to Lodolo. But he is 100% healthy. He is looking like he's got something to prove, and the Reds are back to having that Ace 1A in Hunter Green and Ace 1B in Nick Lodolo, and that's exactly what we want as Red Legs Nation. And then, of course, the negatives just continue to be when you hit the ball hard, they're not falling. You're taking too many strikes. And yeah, just things are not going your way. And then yesterday, much of the same thing until the end. Nick Martinez did not have his best stuff. That's definitely not the best I've ever seen him look in terms of, okay, this is what we're going to have from Nick going forward. But Nick continued to be what Martinez has always been as a Red. And that is he battled. He battled and battled and battled and does what a pitcher of that type of architect does. And he mixed pitches and he threw hitters off balance and pitched a good workload of, I think it was 6 innings. Yeah, it was 6, maybe 6.5 innings last night. So again, starting pitching, not the issue as much as a lack of offense. The offense came in the 8th inning, and like I said, they punched 3 runs across. It was really, really positive energy. They had a runner on base in the 9th inning. I believe it was TJ Friedel, although I'm not 100% sure because Matt McLean did not start that game. And I apologize if you hear any background noise. Someone just walked in the door as I'm recording. But anyway, Matt McLean did not start yesterday because he was scratched with hamstring tightness, but it doesn't appear to be anything serious at all because he did pinch hit in that 9th inning. So he looks to be fine, hopefully going forward. And he hit that ball really strong. I mean, really strong. In any other circumstance, I think if he would have just maybe been an inch more positive than negative, that ball would have been gone. I mean, kiss it goodbye, gone to dead center field, and we'd be talking about a tie game, and we'd have still been watching the Reds versus Brewers last night at that point. So, more positive things to take away from last night. But the other big negative thing, if you haven't heard it, is that there is a sickness that's plaguing the coaching staff and some members of the team. They haven't said what, probably because they just don't want the Brewers to be able to plan against it. So I don't know what it is or how long it's going to affect everybody. Tito did not manage last night. Bench coach Freddie Benavides, managed in his place. So he was one of the ones that was affected by the illness. And judging from that lineup, you can pick out a few names that were probably affected by it. But we're also facing a left-handed starter in Tyler Anderson last night for the Brewers. So that may or may not have been a reflection of it. But you saw Blake Dunn and Santiago Espinal in the outfield. So you could maybe make judgments about Jake Fraley may have been one of those people that was affected. But again, he pinch hit in this game as well. So it's a little bit of a catch-22. Don't really know. But hopefully it's not something that plagues the team long term. So overall in these 2 games, it's just the same thing we've been talking about in this entire rundown, or I've been talking about with you. We, as the collective Reds country unit here on Reds Reality Podcast, it's just guys aren't healthy. Spencer Steer should not be in this lineup. He should be allowed to be in IL and be on the mend. And they need to do something that sparks this offense and gets it going. I think you take a chance. You bring up Will Benson, see if those swing changes of the stance being more open and him driving more toward the ball that we've been hearing about in the minors translates to the majors. So we have that going on and see where that goes. And I think Rhys Hines is another guy, because what Rhys Hines and Jacob Hurd, got ahead of myself. What Rhys Hines and Will Benson bring over Jacob Hurtubise and Blake Dunn, who are currently on the roster, is just that power, that pop. We know eventually that they can run into a ball if we need them to run into a ball. And that's what we're missing right now. We're just missing that spark and that ability to have a game-changing swing, because the power right now is Matt McLain and Ellie De La Cruz, but you don't have anybody else right now. You've got CES, who's on the cusp of it. He's taking some really good swings, but he needs compliments too, and that's where Hines and Benson would come in. And I know people are going to think what I'm thinking in the back of my mind as well, like, are we going to get 2024 Will Benson? I just don't know. But the thing that you know about Benson when he's on the big league roster is you know that he is a guy that is going to bring that energy, bring that fire, and that energy and that fire in the clubhouse, it's just what you need right now, more than anything. So that's what I would do. Make room for Hines, make room for Benson, and just the problem then becomes, okay, Spencer sent down to be healthy. He's put on the IL to be healthy. Who takes that spot? Maybe you keep either Dunn or Hurtubise and carry, 5 or 6 outfielders at that point. Or maybe you look at somebody like Tyler Callahan, or even, Tyler Callahan would pretty much be the only guy right now that I can think of off the top of my head that would take that spot. But it's too early to be looking at trades in the first week of April. But you got to do something. You got to do something to get this team back on track. So hopefully that's what we're talking about as I come back at you tomorrow on Sunday. Now, what I'm going to do is Sunday is an afternoon game. Tonight on Saturday is a night game. And then Sunday is an afternoon game. So what I was trying to say is I'm going to come back at you on Sunday, just because of the logistics of YouTube and how this works. It's just not going to be feasible to get a second update up tonight, because I do have to record. I can't go live yet. So we'll do Saturday and Sunday in a mid-afternoon / early evening video tomorrow. And then hopefully by the time that the Reds play another game, which I believe is going to be on Tuesday, I believe. There's an off day on Monday for the team. But hopefully by the time the Reds play another game, after this Brewers series concludes, we are going to finally be in a situation where I'm coming at you the morning after for night games and the day of for afternoon games, and we're finally back on track. So thank you so much for hanging out with me, enjoying my opinions, bearing with me through all of these life and technical issues that I did not foresee happening at all. And Let me know your thoughts and your opinions down below in the comment section on YouTube, or hit me up at Reds Reality Pod on Twitter/X or Blue Sky. Let me know how you would fix things, just where your head's at. Hopefully you're not giving up, because we still have a 162 game season and we're only talking about game 8 of the year, I think, or maybe it's game 9 by now. I hope it's game 8, because I put 7 games on the recap, but on the graphic, but bear with me if I'm a day or so off. It's hard to keep track of what the actual numbers are. The thumbnail will say it though. It'll say game 2 through blank on the thumbnail for the roundup. So look at the thumbnail if you don't actually know. Like, when you're done watching, click out of the video and go back and look at my thumbnail, and then you'll know where we actually are at with the schedule. But thanks for bearing with me and enjoying my opinions. Let me know yours. You can check out the latest video as well as the episode video that YouTube recommends to you the most to watch if this is your first time here. Thank you if it's your first time here, and I hope you'll stick around and subscribe as I try to make another great podcast for you, the Reds fan. And as always, I'll continue to bring you reality as I see it on all things your Cincinnati Reds.